Anyways, thanks for joining me today, Ashley, Ali. This is actually one of our first podcasts, and
Okay.
this is our second run. So thanks for joining us. So, Ali, how's it going so far? It's been week 4, week 5 into isolation. How are you handling at home?
It's been pretty good. It's good and bad. It's a little bit challenging, but we take it day by day, and so far so good. It takes a little bit of adjustments. We're adjusting more family time, which is always great.
Well, that's good. Before we get started, do you mind just telling us exactly what you do and who you work for?
Yeah, so I am a realtor and an entrepreneur. I've been in the business for 10 years. I'm currently with eXp Realty. Have been with eXp for about a year or so. I've been a realtor for about 10 years. I'm also an entrepreneur. I own about five businesses in various industries, from medical to high tech to nonprofit.
Yeah, I think your family, your brother, you guys have a pedigree for entrepreneurship, right? You guys are
Yeah,
known for that.
we've been pretty much doing this since we were kids. Like, we're talking door to door sales, door knocking, selling chocolate bars. So we've got the spirit of entrepreneurship, and we live it.
That's good. Okay, so let's just go back to just the real estate market. That's something that a lot of people are questioning right now. They don't know. I know some friends who are looking to sell their properties, and they're telling me, should I hire a realtor right now? I have a friend who's coming from Turkey, and he's got a property rental right now, and he's looking to buy, but he needs to sell this property first, and he's got a tenant. And I told him I don't really know these type of things. I know that right now banks are just they're worried about, because the financial environment has changed. People don't have jobs anymore. So for a bank to say, you know what, 3 months ago we approved you for X amount, and now you're unemployed. Can we still finance you? Is there any type of things right now that are giving, people that are looking to buy or sell a bit of confidence?
So in terms of the banks currently are approving, but it all depends on a case by case scenario. So in terms of confidence for purchase, it depends on your situation. There are some that are completely out of a job. There are some that are temporarily laid off. Some are actually busier now than they've ever been. There's frontline. So it does depend on the situation. It depends on the product you're purchasing, whether it's like a house for your personal needs or investment number 50. It depends if you're buying or selling. So each one has its own unique and special variable that plays into this whole formula. Can people buy? Yes. Can people sell? Yes. Can everybody buy or sell? No. There are certain things that we need to be looking out for and considering when purchasing. So for your friend, there'd be a lot of variables. Some of the variables that would be the down payment, reason for doing this. They need to sell to buy. On the buy side, they would ask for income verification. Still, it's
Mhm.
almost pretty much the same. And based on that, the bank would make a judgment call, or the lender would make a judgment call based on the variables that they're presented with. Now, I have been speaking with a lot of mortgage brokers. They are getting a little bit tighter. Appraisers are the biggest challenge, is how do you appraise a property in a market like this? So they're almost not even using comparables like they used to. They're not even using comparables at all, some are telling me. So it's a unique market, it's a unique challenge, and it's pretty much case by case. So if it requires an in-depth discussion with both the realtor and the lender as well, to get the both perspectives on the whole situation.
Now, the real estate market is that obviously different provinces, different market jitters right now. But we live in Ottawa, and obviously Barhaven, and other areas of the city has been a hot market for the last year. Do you find that people now are a bit more hesitant, or maybe they want to wait it out to sell?
Good question. It depends, because you've got some markets that we've noticed very to like. So first we'll get to the macro. So the macro is overall demand has went down, but products have went down, meaning a lot less sellers.
Yeah,
So the buyers went down, but the sellers went down.
it's
So if the
relative,
buyers and
right?
sellers, it's almost the same, give or take. Maybe one's a little bit more than others in different areas. So if they both went down, then that almost negates each other. Right now, it could change. It's almost like a day by day, week by week thing. So everything that we're talking about is valid as of now and it may not be valid next week. So less products, less buyers, but buyers now are serious. So I would notice on my listings and on my and even on my client buyers, those that are looking to buy are very serious. They're not there to kind of test the waters, and they are there to because they need to buy. There's a lot of buyers out there that they need to buy. So even though the market, the demand did go down, meaning we have a lot less buyers, international buyers are almost non-existent now.
Yeah.
Before, they
Yeah.
were a big chunk of the market. Out of town buyers were also a big chunk of the market, or not a substantial chunk. So those are all out. So now it's just people that are actually looking for a house. So it has went down, but out of the last, I'd say 3 weeks, every single one of my listings that had multiple offers. So, but then again, they were also in hot areas and they were well priced. So you still have to do the fundamentals of real estate, which is ensure that your property's properly priced. Otherwise, you're going to get nothing. And especially now more than ever, where if you're off, then it's not happening. So there are some areas that are doing well, or not doing well, but weathering the storm as of now. And there are other areas where they're feeling it. Like products are not moving.
Yeah.
These areas were the ones that were not very active to begin with. So
So give me a
they are now
scenario. So let's say I have a friend who has a property who's looking to sell, okay? And you are representing the seller, okay? And essentially, how would you promote the property right now if, as you know, the orders to confine yourselves is across the city right now? So is it, do you find it harder? I know that I've heard somewhere there's virtual tours, but that can only take you so far, right?
correct. So regarding virtual tours, now mandatory, all my listings I've adapted to make it so that I have to do the full 3D scan. So it scans the entire property, not a video walkthrough, but a full 3D scan. Like you can click on the kitchen and you can see the full kitchen in 3D rendering, like a video game, like a
Okay.
dollhouse.
Okay.
So I make that mandatory in every single one of my listings. Of course, the pictures, and most importantly, video tour. So what I like to do is do a full video tour of the property over and above the 3D scan so that they can get kind of like a walkthrough as if they're walking through. And if the client likes those three, then we go to the next part. So let's say someone calls me on the listing, they've seen those three, they are interested. As realtors, we can still show. We do take proper precautions using gloves, wipes, sanitizer, etc.,
Yeah.
to make sure we minimize. Also, all my sellers, I'm very clear in their instructions to ensure all doors are open inside the unit. So nobody really has to touch anything. They could just walk through all the doors, all the closet doors are open.
Sure.
We do provide gloves and sanitary things like wipes and sanitizer on the site. So let's say someone forgot gloves or they forgot to bring the wipes, we provide it. And all agents are instructed to follow COVID-19 protocol. I
Right.
do offer to all my clients too. We could also make the buyers sign a COVID-19 document that asks the standard questions. Have you been diagnosed or your family member's been diagnosed
Yeah.
with COVID? Have you been out of the country for
Right.
14? Those questions are on there. It's a one pager. Then that way, at least we can kind of make sure that everyone coming through is and the realtor too needs to vet their buyers to make sure that if they're going to come to the property, they're not showing any signs or symptoms of the virus. So if you factor in all these protocols, and then even still, we have sometimes where the buyer doesn't want to is hesitant, or sometimes the seller doesn't want anybody walking through. At this
Mhm.
point, I've done Zoom calls, I've done
Yeah.
Zoho calls, I've done like Google Hangout calls,
Yeah.
where all parties involved are connected, and one person's on site, usually the realtor, myself, and
Right.
basically they tell me how they want to walk through the house. I'm doing two next week, so these are booked appointments where I'm gonna be there, but my clients are not. So, and we're gonna go walk through the whole property and do a full tour.
So I feel like the more confident or the more educated people are all about virtual tours, the more confident people will be to, visit these properties and check them out virtually first, and then maybe go visit the property on site.
Correct. Not
Yeah.
only that, inspections are all done virtually now. So the inspector will go videotape and do a whole virtual tour and send you the report. So I've sold two listings recently where the buyers were not there. Both were actually military, and the inspection was virtual. The mortgage was virtual. The tour was everything was virtual, and
Okay.
they were happy. So they even the inspection, which is a lot of buyers need that just to make sure that the property's okay, and those could be sent as a report. So the inspector could go look at the entire house, top to the bottom for you, and give you a report and videotape the whole thing with pictures. So it's almost better now because now you can look at the whole property with the floor plan. Oh, we also provide floor plans. So detailed, like very high quality, accurate floor plans of the entire home. So when
Yeah.
you're looking at the property, you're seeing the full floor plan. Even if the
Okay.
property never had one before, I provide that. All these things are standard and free because you need to have them. If you don't have them, then you might run into issues as well. It's also great for accuracy, so it's also great for measuring square foot of the house as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said so far you haven't been subject to any type of hiccups for closing, or potential, buyers asking for an extension of or postponement of closing dates or anything like that?
So far, I've been fortunate that hasn't happened. It doesn't mean that it won't happen. The biggest challenge I'm having are properties that are tenant occupied. So for closing, no issues. And if there are issues, well, I've had issues, but we just know we mitigate it. So what I mean by an issue is he may have worked with a bank, and that bank suddenly changes some rule, and
Yeah.
suddenly, and it's on investment properties, not on resale or
Right.
houses.
Yeah.
And at this point, I've worked with the other realtor to help them find the proper financing, so to ensure that the deal closes properly. And I've been successful. It just happened one time, but the rest smooth closing. If there's any hiccups,
Okay.
I work with the other side to ensure we find solutions. So far, knock on wood, in my entire career, I've yet to have a deal not close, and I'd like
Right.
to maintain that as well. So even before we get to the whole acceptance phase, I always like to have a conversation with the buyers or the agent representing the buyers to kind of get a feel for the buyers and see would they be a good fit. Because if they're not a good fit, you can kind of tell up front,
Yeah.
if everyone's truthful, whether or not that buyer might be a good fit or not. So those are all important, and should be done as part of the whole prudent process when representing either buyer or seller.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier tenant occupied property. So what happens if the tenant says, you know what, he's been renting for a year or two, and he realizes the property is going up for sale, and the closing date essentially closes in a month, but the tenant cannot move anywhere because he hasn't found a place. He's unemployed. He can't be in contact with, with movers and whatnot. Has there been any issues that you heard of, maybe with your situations, where the tenant needed more time to move out, or the tenant refused to move out?
So far, no. What we try to do is coach and instruct the tenants ahead of time before we even bother listing on what the expectations are. The challenge has always been since day one for me as a realtor. It's tenants. When it's tenant occupied,
Yeah, of
it is somebody else's home, and we have to respect that. They have
course.
their own rights, and especially with what's going on now, they can technically refuse showings, and there's very little that anyone can do. So that's why it's key for
Right.
landlords to have a very strong and positive relationship with all
Yeah.
tenants, respecting them, and having a very personal conversation with them about the future of their home. So, even before I take on any listing that has tenants occupied, I have certain questions that I make the seller go and have a discussion with in regarding to their tenants, to make sure that everybody's on board. Because if the tenant's not on board and you try to sell your property, it's not going to work. So it's important to have a conversation with the sellers and their tenants. So can a tenant potentially cause problems with a closing? Yes. Has it happened to me? No. Could it happen? Maybe. But the key is to have a conversation and structure everything so that when closing comes, everybody knows what's happening, and the buyer even should be aware of the tenant situation, and should also be kept in the loop before closing if everything's still good. And assistance to the tenant on finding a place is also key as well. And some sellers, let's say they're in a position where they must sell. It's very urgent, and it's tenant occupied. Then the sellers could work out some sort of deal with the tenants to assist them in finding another place. Now, is it hard to find another place? I don't like I haven't seen it yet. There are lots of products available. It's actually easier now to find a place for rent than it was, let's say, before this whole thing occurred. As you may have known, it was very difficult for tenants to find properties because, in addition to having a hot market where a lot of buyers couldn't buy, so they were forced to rent, you
Yeah.
also had Airbnb gobbling up a lot of these houses that would have been
Yeah.
available for rent. So
Yeah.
therefore, tenants were actually in a worse position than people who were buying or selling,
Yeah.
causing an inflated rental market where the prices were going up and the products were very low. You would have multiple bidding situations on rental properties. That doesn't exist now. So it's actually a little bit easier for tenants to find another place if need be. It's all, it does require, it's not straightforward. It does require, it's case by case. It does require all parties to engage in discourse and conversation to
Yeah.
figure out the best course of action.
With Airbnb, like you mentioned, these short-term types of property rental models, those are also being affected as well, right? I mean, these disruptors that we talked about, Airbnbs, WeWork, for example, these are businesses that were supposed to be disruptors to the industry, but these properties are being subject to, booking cancellations, and Airbnb is voiding all the penalties. So I think, I mean, that's going to be a ripple effect, not only the real estate market with respect to buying and selling, but also the rental market as well.
Correct. Yeah. So Airbnb is another business that's affected. Well, everything's affected by what's happening. But Airbnb seems to be the one that people either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And it was a major disruptor in our market. It created a lot of opportunities, but it also ate up a lot of properties that would have been available for rent and for sale. It was a challenge. Now with current situations, we are seeing. But here's the thing: a lot of these Airbnb owners now are in a little bit of a situation where they design their whole properties for Airbnb, and there is no business there. So now they're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do with them and how to position them as well. So it's interesting to see how things will pan out and what's going to happen to all these Airbnb properties after this whole thing gets lifted and
Yeah.
things change.
Rent strikes. Have you heard about that? People, on the commercial and also on the residential are unable to pay their rents. How banks are essentially handling this right now, and I think it varies across the board, but top five banks are trying to work with the tenants, mostly with the residentials, on a deferment program. But I think landlords, commercial landlords, are having a tougher issues handling these type of things.
It's tough on everybody. So I have a couple of leases, commercial, and I have investment properties. And thankfully, on my investment properties, none of them have had issues. All of them are still paying. And in terms of the commercial, since we've been forced to close down, one of them has agreed to a 50% reduction in the lease, which is still nothing. We still have to pay. And the other one said no, flat out. If you don't pay, you're out. So commercial, we think it's easy. It's not. Not all of them are agreeing to it. Those
Yeah.
small time landlords that are not big REITs, they're
Yeah.
not. They're not going to be open to it. Why?
Yeah.
Because they're. I don't know. They're not as how you say lenient. So not all landlords are agreeing to it, and it's not a it's
It's
not
a
a
tough position.
good thing.
This is for both parties.
Yeah, because you've got tenants that are getting N4 notices when they're saying they can't pay. What I think should be occurring is just some rational discussion. Like, if you're still working and you're asking for a break and you're still getting money, then you should have a chat with them and see what your financial situation is.
Hmm.
So if you really can't, then don't. But if you can, then do. Or if you can, then make some sort of agreement that gives you some sort of discount. And not all landlords are given this discount, this reprieve. Many times, banks, if you see all over the news, banks are making it very difficult to get this whole mortgage break because, if a person has like multiple investment properties, the bank might say, well, you've got all these investment properties. Why are we giving you a break? We'll give you a break on your house, but not
Yeah.
these three other properties. Well,
Yeah.
my tenants are paying. Well, then
Yeah.
that's a discussion, right? No,
Yeah.
and banks are not really talking. They're just,
Right.
it's almost like it's an automated process where you either get it, and even if you do get it, you still have to reapply in some situations. So you got to go reapply for a mortgage.
On a
Well, right
month-to-month
now I'm not
basis too.
working. How am I going to reapply here? And what if my credit's not as good as it was 3 years ago when I got there, or 5 or 10 years
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah.
So it's not. It's a rough terrain. It's a
Yeah.
very challenging time indeed.
Yeah. The residential tenants who cannot pay right now, I would say 2 or 3 weeks ago, when things were uncertain and the government was not releasing any updates on the relief package. Now that they've really issued or released the $2,000 a month program, I think people are a bit more confident to to cover some of their monthly expenses. And with regards to commercial tenants, the government passed a bill I think it was last night or Friday night, essentially passing the 75% wage subsidy, which will help greatly. And they also passed that $40,000 loan, which will definitely help as well. Now, I've spoken to some business owners. They don't want to be in a debt position after this, and I can totally understand that. But I think at this point, it's all about cash flow, right? If you can just borrow, and if you're eligible, borrow that $40,000, and then deal with the with the debt repayment after that. They did
Yeah.
announce a $10,000. I guess that $40,000, out of that $40,000, 10,000 will be converted into some type of a grant that you don't have to pay for, which is kind of good.
Yeah.
But I think for business owners right now, if you can just survive, using that 75% wage subsidy as well as that $40,000 loan, I would suggest doing so.
Here's a problem. You need $50,000 of payroll. So what a lot of these small businesses were doing was having a couple of drivers and a cook getting paid cash. So their payroll is very low. It's just them.
Yeah.
So a lot of these businesses that actually need it, the pizza store, that burger place, that small ethnic food place, they can't even get it. They don't have $50,000 of verified payroll. Why? Because
Yeah.
these guys are working part-time, delivering at certain hours, and half of them were cash and the ones that were not. So it's not all businesses will benefit, and the ones that need it the most can't even access it. And $2,000, to be completely honest, what's that going to do these day and age? Like some people's car payments are half of that.
Yeah.
So you've got a situation where after you pay fundamentals, that just utilities and all that, you'll have nothing. You don't have anything for food. So for some people, it could be a bonus. Say, oh wow, I was making less before. Now, no, I don't think a lot of people are making less than $2,000. So we're just getting the bare minimum. So if anyone thinks that $2,000 will allow anyone to thrive, or no, it's just basics. And not everybody is going to get those reliefs of the mortgages. So let's say the bank said no to you, or for whatever reason you don't. Well, now you've got the $1,500 mortgage and $500 left over. What are you going to do with that? Yeah, and there's a lot of things that could come for small businesses. And even if they take that $40,000 loan, well, if you want to make it a $30,000 loan, fine. That's still a $30,000 loan.
Yeah.
If you have no money and you're not making that much money, you're eking out very little profit because it was tough. Now it's another $30,000 that you have to work with. And I know business owners that had a really good 2019, took all this money and upgraded their business and bought all these really expensive $400,000, $500,000 equipment, and they remortgaged their house and refinanced, and now they're on the hook and they can't do anything about it. They just have to sit there. And I didn't get to too much details about it,
Right.
but business loans are a little bit different than normal banks. So a bank may give you a relief, but these small business guys are almost like it's a different game in that level where they can prey on the vulnerable right now, and there's a lot of vulnerable small business owners.
We've started this podcast because we realize a lot of local businesses ranging from, 5 employees to 20 employees, even 100 employees, they're panicking right now. And there's a lot of information out there. And like I said, 2 weeks ago, there was not enough information to provide confidence for business. Now, you might say 30, 40,000 may not be sufficient, or $2,000, but I think it's opening the dialogue right now. I think it's helping a little bit. I think the biggest thing too is the 75% wage subsidy. I know that the Conservative Party are trying to push some of those requirements of $50,000 payroll, maybe reduce it to even lower, maybe even include owners who pay themselves dividends, because essentially that was not included in the original proposal, but now they're looking to potentially push that in, which will help smaller business owners, like you said, the pizza guy or the florist and whatnot. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the more they could do, the better. This is uncharted territory. It's never in the history of, I think, any time has this kind of thing ever occurred. And it's like, even if it was a war in different times during humanity's history, it would be like one region that would be in trouble. But now we're looking at like almost like a global thing. So a lot of uncertainty is making things a little bit more challenging and more difficult to navigate. So the more that can be done to help those that are affected with this current situation, the better. And even when things are lifted and the timelines, they're varying big time. Like it went from a month, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. Seeing some 18 months numbers in there on CBC. They were talking about it.
yeah,
So I'm not sure how long this could. Well, I don't even think the many will not survive. It's
yeah,
like to me, I believe that small business is the engine of and the economic engine of this country and
absolutely.
every single country on the planet. When you cut the engine off, you cut the blood flow,
Yeah,
certain vital organs are going to start feeling it and could be creating irrevocable or unfixable
yeah.
harm to our society that we will see once all this thing hopefully recovers and does so quickly. So we're trying to be positive, but doesn't look very. The
Um,
picture can go both ways. Like we can
yeah.
recover and experience the biggest booms in ever, or we can recover and have a very slow, sluggish, difficult time recovering.
I think it'll take at least 2, 3 years to full, at least anyways. I don't want to mention the word depression because that will take at least a decade to recover from all this, but it's going to take a long time. Even with, the way humans are going to interact and the human behaviors, things are going to change from all over all industries. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Is the new economic. So what I try to tell everyone that is either a small business clients or even family and friends is just go through the 4 stages of grief. Go to the last stage, which is acceptance. Accept it, and then see what you can do to work with what's going on. So we need to accept that. Hey, this is how it is. Let's not try to sugarcoat anything. What can we do with now to make our life, our family, our business thrive, not just survive, but thrive. And that's the key is, and trying to stay positive in that is a little bit challenging because there's a lot of negativity around that, as you can see all over on the news, on the social media, about, all these things that are happening. So the key is to try to have the mindset so that you don't let it affect you and you accept it as what it is and you pivot in a way that allows you to thrive so that you can still provide and be there for your family and loved ones.
shifting back to EXP, where you work, you mentioned to me before you guys are really set up for virtual working environments, right? So this is
Yes.
really not something that, talking to your colleagues or clients over Skype or Google Meets. This is nothing something different for you guys, right?
Yeah, so EXP is built for this. It's 100%. It's one of the rare 100% cloud-based brokerages where it's entirely on the cloud. There's no physical locations. Our physical locations are collaborative spaces like Regis. So we have 124 countries covered with our Regis membership that's free for all the EXP agents.
Yeah,
Are included. All our systems, our softwares, our protocols, documents, everything's 100% cloud. It's and not just cloud as in like web cloud. No, cloud as in 3D virtual environment, like a video game type of cloud. All the staff have offices in the cloud. You go see them in like a video game virtual reality environment. You have an avatar. Your clients can go there. We can have staff meetings there. We have over and above what Zoom can do on the cloud. And we're talking about almost 30,000 agents all on the cloud right now, live in real time, doing from training to administrative to technical support. So we've got a team of 400 dedicated corporate staff on the cloud available now. There's been no hiccups with EXP. In
Yeah.
fact, there's been an uptick, a big increase in the amount of agents that have moved over to EXP just so they can keep operating. In my team here in Ottawa, most of the team members are experiencing a significant boost only because our brokerage is set up to manage this kind of environment. Because in this kind of environment where it's got to be all digital and cloud based, EXP is a front runner. It's a market leader.
Yeah.
A lot of companies are doing great job in mitigating and trying to build their cloud platform. A lot of brokerages, but EXP's been doing this for 10 years. So it's not new to the company,
Yeah.
and they've had 10 years to refine it and work around it. So it's, the training is top notch. Even EXP is providing 60-day access to any agent that is interested. Clients can go, I can do meetings with my clients on the cloud. I can invite them and they can come into my office in a virtual reality. They can meet my team, my broker of record, all their avatars. My clients can collate their avatars. We can sign documents on the cloud, everything. So it's like, so EXP, if you want to think about it, it's like a video game that meets business. It's on a platform called Verbella, which is a pretty powerful platform, and it's open source and international. So anybody on the planet can go and, well, right now it's only 4 countries, just UK, Canada, Australia, and America. But yeah, so it's made for this. So it's helped agents not just help them operate their business, but also help them mentally. I'm noticing the biggest hurdle for a lot of those that are either in the real estate business or realtors, it's the mental element, is how do you get past all that negativity? So if you're in an environment that's very positive and not panicking, or it's already kind of designed, it's almost like nothing changed with the company. So once it's all hit, it's not like we have to go change and now log into a new website with new protocols, with new training things. No, it's all this things just continued. So that is an important element when you're operating your business, is now you don't have to learn new things. You just keep doing what you're doing.
So no issues at all so far working from home either, right? The isolation period for you? You're
The
used
only
to
issue
a virtual life.
is the kids.
Yeah.
You got like, and trying to navigate the whole staying at home thing, and the kids wondering why you're not talking to them and working instead of just that. I've been fortunate where I've had the best month and a half of my entire 10-year career, and it's been a blessing. Yeah, so my biggest challenge in all this is trying to find time for my family, to spend more time with them, and not get buried at work at home. Because when you work at home, you can work 24/7 because your office is right there.
Yeah.
And there's no like, there's, at least if you have I do have an actual office too. So the beauty about like the company I work with is you can leverage their cloud, you can leverage their collaborative space. You could also get your own office. So I do have one, and I used to stop and come home and maybe do light work, and then spend time with family. But when you work from home, there's no barrier, so it can get difficult to determine when is it enough, and kind of structure and regulate that time frame that gives you enough time to spend time on yourself and your family as well.
Yeah, I think it requires a level of discipline there for sure. And if you're not used to that, it could be difficult, but I think people are getting used to it now. I mean, being in isolation for 4 or 5 weeks now, I think people are starting to get used to working from home. Some people are not yet, but as entrepreneurs and business owners, you kind of just figure it out and find ways to work whenever you can. And it's not a 9 to 5 type of schedule anymore, right?
No,
It's
no.
7 days a week now.
Yeah, and new routines. You have to adjust to new routines, and create new routines, create new habits. So it can, and you got a lot of temptations at home, right? You can have that TV, that food, the snacks, and things that could distract you from focusing on leveling up your business, leveling up your career, reaching out to clients, reaching out to your own family. All these things, you want to try to minimize the distractions at home, and that's key as well. That's also been a challenge.
And you get 2 kids at home, you said?
Yeah, I got two kids. I have a
Yeah.
5-year-old. Sorry, she just turned 6 on April 8th, so her birthday was just recently. And I have a 14-month-old as well. So
Wow.
Sophia and Mila. So Sophia is the 14-month-old, and
Yeah,
Mila
yeah.
is the 6-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Same as us. We have a 2.5-year-old and 7.5. So
Yeah.
it's it's they don't know what's going on. Obviously, my eldest daughter, she's not going to school, but she's just asking why am I not seeing my friends? Why can I go
Yeah.
in the park? And you try to be positive about it and explain to them the truth. No, there is a pandemic, but that potentially we're not going to be able to see our friends and family too close to them for a few months, and
Mhm.
try and stay positive. And the whole homeschooling thing has definitely been quite a challenge. I don't profess to be an educator myself, so or my wife either, but we try to make good. We try to make the best of it.
None
So,
of us are prepared for this. This just came from left field.
oh yeah,
So how are we going to prepare for something we were not prepared for? And how are we, so a lot of kudos to all those families that are, homeschooling their kids and spending some time with them. And, but a lot of families were not prepared for that. And, some can't even do it because there's not, the environment isn't set up for it. So, it can be challenging. It can be challenging.
well, we're gonna close this up. Ali, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Where can we find you? Do you have a website or Instagram or Facebook that we can follow you?
Yeah, so the best is on Facebook, Ali Abbas Realtor. If you do that, I'm there. You can catch me at aliabbas.ca. Instagram as well. If you search for Ali Abbas Realtor as well, I should pop up. And yeah, the best place to catch me is on Facebook. I'm pretty active, and yeah, so that's where you can catch me.
Sounds good. Well, thanks a lot, Ali.
Well, thank
So
you.